everybody. It is afternoon coffee break time. You guys, I am so excited with our guest today, and you will not believe how I met this beautiful lady. So, first of all, welcome Gin Noon-Spalding. She is my guest
Thank
today.
you. So glad to be here.
Yay!
So, true story, guys. Last week when I was doing a coffee break with Dr. Gina Nobles, and I was in too much of a hurry, and my fingers were typing too fast, and I tagged what I thought was Dr. Gina, and I accidentally tagged Jen, and it was the hilarious text that I got. She sent me this very sweet message and said, "Hey Denise, you accidentally tagged me. I am not a doctor, nor do I pretend to play one on TV." So I just had to reach out and find out who this beautiful soul was, and so now we're friends.
Yay!
And the really funny story is we have about 16 mutual friends, so that's even more hilarious to me. So anyway, you just never know where Facebook will lead you. So, it's a great time to connect with people that you may or may not know, or you haven't met yet. So,
Most definitely.
yes. So, Jen is an author. So I was also doubly excited to hear that. And so tell us, Jen, what kind of books do you write, and what led you to writing your first book?
Well, I am a children's book author, and I'm also a retired teacher. And so in 2017-18, that school year, I was having, my class was a little spirited. And so I was like, wow, I could retire if I wanted to. So I was really praying earnestly about retirement. And God showed me it's time for you to go. And so in the midst of all that, there was a voice that said, write children's books about sensory issues. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be really great. I don't think there's any books out there about sensory issues. So I immediately went to the computer, did my little research, and I really didn't find that many books about sensory issues. I found books about autism or sensory processing disorder, but not just about sensory issues.
So, hang on. So what do you mean when you say about sensory issues? Like, you're educating families on sensory issues, or you're writing to the kids to help them understand about sensory issues?
Well, what's amazing about my books, they are written for children, but they're also written for parents. Because in the book, they're based on my experience, my life, because my daughter had sensory issues and a speech delay, and she was diagnosed with hyperlexia, which is something I'd never really heard of. And then later on, she was diagnosed with autism 1, but there's a big argument within the community about hyperlexia being autism or not autism. So it's like a high functioning, and I don't care. Just give me the services. But anyway, but anyway, so they're based on my daughter. So the books are written from Malia. That's my daughter Lily. Adventures of Lily is the name of the series. And so it's written from her point of view, but then it also tells about different things that I do and say and how she feels about it. And then so it's the kind of way it's teaching the parents about sensory issues, and then it's like also helping the child to not feel alone. Like, it's not just me with this thing, because we all have sensory issues. It's where you are oversensitive or undersensitive to the stimuli in your environment. So we all have that, and it's like the 5 senses that you have, seeing, hearing, touching, etc. And then there are 2 hidden senses that a lot of people don't know about. And so, you know, and it's anything from like the tag in the back of your shirt that feels icky, or there are foods that you eat in your mouth that just don't taste right, the texture's off, or that there are lights or things that, you know, that you're sensitive to light, or, you know, no light bothers you. It could be over or under. And so when we were going through what we were going through with our daughter, it was just so weird and different. I just didn't understand. You know, I was like, what is this? You know, because she looks perfectly fine like everyone else, and she was really smart, and she taught herself the alphabet and started reading it too, and all of that. But, you know, yet she was delayed with her speech, and it was just strange. Like in one of my books, my last book, now this last book, it was called Jump-O-Ween, and we went to Halloween. It was a Halloween party with my church. I called it a Hallelujah party. And it was, you know, she looked forward to it. She was so excited. She was jumping up and down, you know, in anticipation to get on the jumpy. And so we went she wanted to go straight to the jumpy. So we found out where it was, went to the jumpy. Well, she was jumping. You know, she was just enjoying herself on the jumpy. Well, it was time to go. You know, there were 10 people in line. And so we had to, and, you know, we took her costume with a little horse and rider, and she was like the horse and the rider. So we had to take her costume off so she could jump. Well, she had a huge wheelie letdown. That's what we call it. Here, I'll show y'all. She had a huge wheelie letdown when it was time, which is a meltdown. And oh my goodness, I'll never forget it. It was awful. People were staring at us, and I could not even put her costume on. She was screaming, kicking. My husband had to carry her out. And what was amazing, as soon as we left out the door, she immediately stopped. Immediately. And I was like, I mean, it was just, I can't even explain it, how I felt. I mean, it was shocking because it was like, nothing.
Was it? So she had to get out of there's too much lights and sound and sensory.
It was sensory overload. Yeah. It was too much. I mean, I was like, well, maybe I should go back. I said, no, I better not. So anyway, I put her, and as a parent, you know, we've seen kids have tantrums. They usually last all the way to the car. As soon as she was out of the environment that was causing her pain, she stopped. Mm-hmm. I put her clothes on. People were staring. It just hurt me so bad. So in my book, I addressed that through her. Like, you know, I wonder why my mommy is crying. You know, could it be that people were looking at us and talking about us? You know, maybe, but I really wasn't paying attention because I was having my Lily letdown. Mm-hmm. And so, but that was an eye-opener. And, you know, I went home immediately and called our speech therapist. I called a teacher at school whose child had sensory integration dysfunction. I had recently found out. And I just cried. In the book, I called the therapist, but in real life, I called my teacher friend. And I was just distraught. I cried. I was so upset. And she explained to me, I mean, she was like, Jen, I understand, I've been there. But when I talked to the therapist the next day, she was like, when Malia was on the jumpy and she was jumping, they gave her something to focus on. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter how loud. She could really hear. You know, she focused on the jumping. And when I pulled her off of that, all of the noises, all of the people, and see, my daughter has she has one of the hidden sensory issues, which is proprioception. And so when they have proprioceptive sensory issues, then crowds, they don't like crowds. They're very heavy. And see, she was heavy-handed. I was always called heavy-handed. Like, you know, like if I did something not really, like if I hit you or I try to pull you up or do something, I did it really hard. Well, that's a sign of proprioceptive sensory issues.
Hmm.
So, so she had those, and like she would stomp instead of walk. It was so, and proprioceptive is not, it's just not being comfortable in your own body. It's like body awareness, not being aware. So she had that. So all of those, the lights, the visual, she had the one to touch and proprioceptive sensory issues, all of that, and it was all together that night, and it was just too much for her.
Yeah.
So so to answer your question, actually for both.
Well, that's cool. And so you've shown us 2 of them so far. So is it a series or a set,
It
or are you
is.
still working on it?
Right. Well, the first book, A Miracle at Bates Memorial, is basically about an introduction to Malia, my husband and I, our family, and that how she loves church, but she didn't want to look at the pastor because that's a visual sensory issue. She loved the older ladies, but she didn't want them hugging her, which was touch, and a little bit of proprioceptive sensory issues. And so in here, she has a Lily. Let me show you. She wanted to go one way out the door, and I wanted to go a different door. And she had a Lily let down there because I wanted to go my way. She wanted to go her way. And she was about to have a Lily let down when something said, Jim, look at the doors. Look at your door and her door. My way was crowded. Her way was not. We went her way. And that was the Miracle at Bates Memorial. So that's the first one. And so then every other book is about a specific sensory issue. So the second one is called Picture Perfect Knot. And this is about how she hated to have her picture taken. And I love to take pictures, all the time. She's our only, so why not? And so I was always taking pictures. She always hated it. But basically, she was at, her only escape was daycare to get away from pictures. And so at daycare, they had a picture guy, and they were taking pictures, and she refused to let them take her picture. That's what much fun. I had her all dressed up and everything, but no. And then, like I said, the third book is about the proprioceptive sensory issues. This was my Halloween book. This came out Halloween 2019.
Very good.
And that's it. And my next book, I'll give y'all a prelude to the next book. The next book is going to be about sensory issues to touch, because my daughter did not like to be kissed and hugged, and we're a kissy, huggy family. Well, I came from
No pictures, no kissing, no hugging.
Yes. She would say, no kiss.
Not even from you?
What now?
Not even from you?
She would tolerate kiss hugs every now and then, and then she got better as time went on. She'll hug me now, but when she was little, she did not like all that. She did not. And I grew up, I was always touchy-feely, huggy, and so was my mom. My dad was, he would hug you, but he's not like that, and my sister's not. So I just said, she just took after my sister, is what I said. But I didn't, but through the therapist, when she was little, we had speech and occupational therapy when she was little before school. So when she got to kindergarten, all we had was speech at school. All she qualified. And so then in the beginning of second grade, they want to stop the services in first grade. I was like, really? Because that was our line with speech. And we had private speech too. And and occupational, I just did not play around with that. It was just very, very serious for me. I was a teacher. I know what happens when these issues are not addressed. 0 to 3 is optimal change. So that's when we found out between that range. And then I think it's 3 to 7 is good change. So, the earlier you find these issues and work on them, the better. So I was all over her. But she didn't have any services at all from second grade all the way to high school. Well, she goes to Manual High School. And she's always been a phenomenal student. She was the valedictorian of her 8th grade class, and she's always loved school. But, you know, I knew she was at Manual, and that I didn't know. And so anyway, you know, she juggled it, but it was overwhelming. You know, everything was due at once. And, you know, so we had her retested, and they ended up giving her something called a 504 plan just to help her with organization and time management. So she has that now, and that has helped. So just, you know, that they have a plan for you. Like she can turn in things a little later, you know, that she has preferential seating in the class, things like of that nature. She can have a little bit more time on test if she needs it. And most of the time she doesn't use those things, you know, especially with the more time on test. But sometimes she's like, I need more time, you know. So
well, that's good that she can recognize it, because that will help her, you know, as she moves into adult world and job and college. For her to recognize where her strengths and weaknesses are. That's probably one of the greatest gifts that you have given her.
Oh, thank you. I try so hard. It's been a journey. It has. And, you know, I'm almost feeling emotional just thinking about, you know, when I was going through it, I was just going through it, you know. But then, like, when I tell people, it just makes me a little emotional, because it was definitely a journey. It was hard, you know, to go through all that we went through. And it was God. I mean, the Lord really, because no one really gets to, I mean, the child looks perfectly normal. Why is she acting like that? People don't understand. And in addition to the therapy, we also went to a holistic doctor, and we found out that she was severely allergic to milk. And, you know, all these years I thought that I was doing what I was supposed to. You know, she had yogurt and she had all these milk products, so I thought milk was good for you. And, you know, and she has like a low tolerance to sugar. So, you know, even to this day, we don't do milk or milk products. And actually, I'm vegan now, and she's not vegan, but she's perfectly fine eating the vegan food. She does not mind it. And, but yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah,
it has been.
Always a journey. Yeah. Well, I think our time is up, but that's okay. I will put a link. So Jen will be tagged in this, and I'll put a link at the bottom if you want to check out her books or talk with her more directly. You'll be able to reach out to her. And thank you from all of the parents who have children with sensory issues. Thank you for being obedient and writing these books to help all of us to understand, both the kids and the adults, to understand what's going on. And that, you know, because of the work that I do with genetics, everybody is unique. And so, you know, all the kids are unique, whether they have sensory issues or not. And so part of our journey as parents is to find what makes our kids thrive. So thanks for adding another tool to the toolbox.
You're welcome. And I want to reiterate that, you know, just your child, I mean, there are a lot of people, most people do have sensory issues, I think, but it's not necessarily a diagnosis. You know, there are some people that, like with the tags, okay, a tag could bother, I don't have a sensory issue, but it'll bother me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to, you know, take it out when I get home. Yeah. But when a person has a sensory issue, they're not going to be able to function with that tag. Whereas you and I probably could, you know. So you might have a little bit of something, but not a diagnosis, or you might necessarily have a total issue where you might need to seek a therapist. But some people do, and it's okay. And if you don't, you know, you just work through it like I did with my tag.
Well, thank you again, Jen, and we will see everybody on our next coffee break. And everybody have a fabulous afternoon, and be safe and be well and be blessed. Bye, everybody.
Bye.